Hey, this is Jack Bourne, founder of Deadline Funnel. I'm here with a Deadline Funnel client who's having some really strong success with what he's doing. And so I asked him if he would come on board and share some of his takeaways, some of the lessons learned from what he's doing, and just have a conversation about what's working in his business. And so, Cyrus, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. So let's start with what your business is and who you serve, and that's a good place to start.
Okay, so we run a company called Mastering Diabetes, which is an online group coaching program for people living with all forms of diabetes. And we're very specific. We teach people living with diabetes how to adopt a plant-based diet so that they can reverse insulin resistance, which is sort of the underlying condition that affects all forms of diabetes. And
Okay.
so we've been doing this for a long time, and using this group format, large scale group coaching has really been a fun experience for us, and we're able to help thousands of people around the world.
Awesome, awesome. So you have kind of a unique way of getting clients into your funnel, and then turning prospects into clients. So why don't you talk about what methods you and your partner use?
Absolutely. So one of the most effective methods that we have implemented in the last 2 years is creating an online summit. And an online summit, just think of it as like a conference. I'm sure you've probably seen them online before. But it's, what we did is we went and we interviewed 35 of the world's leading experts in the subject of reversing diabetes using a plant-based diet. And so these are New York Times bestselling authors. These are physicians. These are doctors. These are people who are already out there in the public. They have a big following, and they're identifiable characters. So we set up interviews with every single one of them. We recorded these interviews using Zoom. We came up with questions for each one of them, and then we packaged this whole thing into an online summit that drip feeds 5 new interviews per day for a total of 7 days. And so it requires a lot of sort of back end, web page creation and getting a bunch of tools involved in your autoresponder, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the things that we did this year that we hadn't done in the previous year was to use Deadline Funnel. And the reason we wanted to do it is because we saw other people that were using Deadline Funnel. And I found it to be a very effective method for actually creating time pressure that then, gets people to potentially make a purchase and have to make a decision relatively quick.
So what were some of the challenges that you ran into, specific to going from a live summit to an evergreen summit? Because even with a live summit, my understanding is that there's a lot of moving parts, because just like you said, you've got 5 interviews per day for
Right.
7 days, and you got lots of moving pieces. So was that a challenge getting that automated?
Yeah, so just to be clear, what we did is we actually pre-recorded all of the interviews. So we interviewed people over the course of a couple of months, and then we took those pre-recorded interviews and we basically just drip fed them to people over the course of a 7-day period. So it's almost like this pseudo live experience, right? Because you're just getting new content every day, even though the content was created a couple of months ago, but nobody really cares about that. Then what we did last year is we took all of that and we turned it evergreen, which means that when you come to our website and you click on the summit link in the nav bar, it takes you to the landing page that has no specific date information on it. So the minute you hit that landing page, you get to participate in the experience, even if the summit happened 3 months ago. You just have no idea, because it's just this new opportunity for you to opt into if you want to. So we created an evergreen, and last year we did it with no deadline funnels involved at all. This year we're doing it with deadline funnels. And what we're finding is that both during the live event and during the evergreen, because the minute that somebody enters their email address and gets inside of our funnel, we hit them with a deadline funnel, which basically says, hey, listen, thanks for joining. We really appreciate you participating in this. If you'd like to purchase, the all access pass, which is your sort of top level, program that gives you all this information that you can download onto your devices, then you have some period of time to make that decision. And we chose, by talking with a lot of entrepreneur friends, that about 60 minutes was a good period of time that gives pressure, but not too much pressure. And so we put that 60-minute timer into play. And we were curious. We said, you know what, if people get pissed off with this and they say, oh, you guys are being too pushy and too salesy, we could increase the time to maybe 3 hours or 6 hours. We had very few people that actually got pissed off with that. And the majority of people saw the offer and they said, oh, of course I want to own this stuff. And then they ended up purchasing.
And so what was the, just to be clear, what price point are you offering your all access pass for?
Okay, so the all access pass price depends on whether you take advantage of it before the deadline or after the deadline.
Okay.
So if you choose to purchase the all access pass before the deadline, it's a $77 one-time purchase. If you choose to purchase it after the 60-minute deadline, it goes up by $20. It's not even that much, right? But it's enough of a jump, psychological jump, that we're trying to entice people to get it sooner rather than later. And we didn't know if those were the right prices. And to be perfectly honest, we may increase those prices in the future. There's no, we're open to doing that. But we found that using those price points, we were able to get about a 5% conversion, meaning from every single person that entered the funnel, we were able to get about 5% of them to convert and actually purchase the all access pass, which was a great conversion rate for us.
Now, for the people that don't purchase, are you before the deadline? Are you sending additional emails throughout the rest of the 7 days to try to get them to purchase the all access pass?
100%. So the minute that they get enrolled in the funnel, they get put into a sequence that we send to them using ActiveCampaign, and the sequence basically is going to send them emails over the course of realistically about 2 weeks. And the 2-week email sequence basically says, hey, thanks for joining. Here's this freebie. Let's add value. Let's add value. Let's add value. And then now here's your day one interviews. Go take a look at this. By the way, if you want to purchase the all access pass, click here to do it. And just by having that sort of like PS or by the way in the emails itself without being too salesy, people were still buying on a daily basis, even though they didn't take advantage of it before the deadline when they originally signed up.
At the end of the 7 days, let's say on day 8, can they purchase it still, or does it go away? What happens with that?
Yeah, so the way that we set it up is that if they happen to go back to a previous email, let's say it's day 15, and they happen to just not check their email for a while, then they went back to a day 6 email, and they clicked on, oh, I want to buy the All Access Pass, and they clicked on it, it would take them directly to the All Access Pass checkout page, and they could purchase it. So theoretically, people could do this, into the future. They could do it 3 months from now if they wanted to. We were considering turning it off such that if they said, yeah, I want to purchase it, that they would get redirected to a page that said, sorry, time is up. But we chose to allow people to do that just because maybe we could recoup a little bit of money from people that weren't checking their email originally.
Yeah, something that you also might want to try is you might want to have the fast action 60-minute price, the during the 7 days price, and then an even higher price. So you can still get it, but it's an even higher price after the 7 days. That's
actually a model that I was thinking about doing, and I would love to use Deadline Funnel to actually create that, because that way you have sort of multiple deadlines within a single campaign, right?
Very, very cool. So how do you set it up? So if they don't buy the all access pass, isn't there a window during which they can watch the I don't know if you're calling it a replay, but watch the presentation for a specific author? And if so, how are you controlling that?
Okay, so if I think I understand what you're saying is that you never have to purchase the All Access Pass in order to participate in the summit. You could register for the event, today, and then you could get drip fed all these emails over the course of that 7-day summit. You could watch as many of those interviews as you wanted, purchase nothing, and then great. Maybe you saw 10 of the interviews. Fine. If you're happy, I'm happy. Doesn't really matter. But if you choose to purchase the All Access Pass, then that gives you the option of owning all that material so that you can access it down the road. So during that window, it's actually technically a free event. We're just giving them the option of opting into the All Access Pass if they choose that. Is that what you're asking?
Well, but okay. So let's say that on day 1, the expert is Dr. Smith,
right?
And I don't actually watch it. On day 2, if I want to watch Dr. Smith, am I able to go back and see Dr. Smith or not?
Correct. Yeah. So some summits have set it up whereby the day 1 interviews are only available for a 24-hour period. And then they go down. Then the day 2 interviews are available for 24 and so on and so forth. And we actually chose not to do it that way because we've actually talked with some people who have run online summits before. And they said, you know what? you're going to end up potentially developing a higher brand authority with people and more trust with people if you give them some period of time that's a reasonable amount of time to watch all this stuff for free without hitting them with too much pressure. And so we said, all right, fine. If we follow that methodology, then we'll hit them with the deadline funnel at the beginning, which is that short 60-minute deadline funnel. But regardless of whether they choose to watch or purchase or not purchase, we'll make the experience relatively relaxed for them so that they don't feel like mastering diabetes is only cares about their money. Because that's what I don't want people to feel like all we're doing is just trying to sell them stuff by constantly taking things down. So that was sort of an executive decision that we made early on in the process.
That's fascinating. So at what point can someone not go back and watch Dr. Smith's interview?
At what point can someone not go back and watch Dr. Smith's interview? That's a great question. So,
because if I buy my understanding is that if I buy the all access pass, that gives me the ability to go and log in anytime and see the content whenever I want, right?
Correct.
So when is if I don't buy the all access pass, when does the cutoff happen?
Okay, so if you don't buy the all access pass, this is actually a hole in our system right now. You're making me realize this. Because right now there's no deadline. So if 2 months in the future you open an old email and you click on that, you could theoretically still get access to that interview. But what I think we are gonna do now that I've had this conversation is make it so that after the free replay weekend, 10 days down the road,
right.
We make it so that if they try and access that, they get kicked out and then they get redirected to another page that says, sorry, you can't access this information anymore.
Gotcha. Okay, great. So, is the main source of revenue for your business the summit, or are there other things that you also offer?
Yeah, actually, no. The main source of revenue for our business is our coaching program. So we have an online group coaching program where people get access to another online course, and then they get into a Facebook group and they get video conferencing with us. And so that's the main revenue driver. The summit is something that we put on because it adds a ton of awareness for who Mastering Diabetes is, number one. Number two, it aligns us with the big speakers that are already running massive online empires. Number three, it's a way for us to develop a really good friendship with a lot of the best guys in the business, both in the online world as well as just in the nutrition world. And then we also put it on because it does make a really healthy amount of money. And we love that. It's just not the primary revenue driver for us.
That's great. Now you've mentioned several times these other peers of yours that are doing online summits and giving you feedback. So is there a resource like where you went to go learn how to do online summits? Did you?
Definitely.
Yeah. So who would you recommend?
Okay, so there is a online marketer. His name is Naveed Moazis, and he runs what's called Virtual Summit Mastery. And we took a chance thinking, okay, maybe this guy has something to teach us. And as soon as we got into his course, I was like, oh, wow, mind blown. Naveed is a genius. He's got so much experience in this, and he's helped so many people. So if people are interested in learning more about it, I would highly recommend learning from him.
Cool. I was thinking you might say his name. I did an interview with him, and yeah, he's a smart guy.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm glad you know about him because he knows a lot of really good, powerful stuff.
Very, very cool. So I know that there were some. So you worked with my team, and can you just talk real quick about the experience that you had working with some of our team? Because not everything worked perfectly because you have a lot of international clients.
Yes. So one of the things that we noticed when we set up our deadline funnel originally is, number one, deadline funnel is a very powerful piece of software. There's a lot of things you can customize that give your funnel a lot of functionality. And given that we had so many things going on and trying to coordinate a bunch of different online tools, I did my best to set it up properly, but then there were a couple things that I just did improperly, and I'll be the first person to admit that. So as soon as people started registering for the event, there were some problems that they started emailing us about. Okay, one of the problems, the main problem that we were trying to solve is that in the previous iteration of the summit, the very first year, if you kind of think of the summit as being basically just a collection of pages, that you have the opt-in gate at the very top. Once you opt in, then you get access to the schedule page, which then gives you access to the speaker pages and so on and so forth. What we had people do is opt in at the top, and then they get access to everything. So if on day 3 you get an email in your inbox that says go listen to the day 3 interviews, you can click on that and get to the schedule page and start to listen. Some people would share that on Facebook or share it on Twitter. And then people on the outside world who didn't register would say, oh, look, I want to watch that. They click on it, they get to the schedule page, and now they're watching for free. And so we saw that right off the bat in our first iteration. And this time we used Deadline Funnel to block that, such that if somebody shares that schedule link on Facebook, somebody new tries to access that schedule page, but they're not tracked, then Deadline Funnel will say, hey, wait a minute, you never opted in. And it sends them right back to the top and says, you need to opt in order to get this information. So with your team's help, once we figured out that Deadline Funnel is the tool that we can use to do that, we put it into play. And as soon as we put that into play, it solved 98% of the problems. But then there were some other people who were saying, I'm still getting kicked out. I promise you, I registered for your event. I promise you. In fact, I did it 6 times and I still can't get access to the schedule page. So at that point, we contacted your team once again and said, hey guys, why is this happening? And found out that sometimes some people have browser problems where their security is too high and they block cookies from being deposited on their computer. So in that situation, we had to create another redirect that sent people to another page that said, all right, this is what you can do to get access to the summit. So when all these sort of small problems came around, because I didn't know how to solve the problem, I wrote directly to your team, and we had some of your team members are incredibly fast at responding, and they were able to help us out, get on a screen share with us and say, all right, click this button, do this, change this, get rid of this, change this. And as soon as we did that, it was like, oh my God, these guys are great because they're willing to support people who are really trying hard, but maybe don't know all the intricacies of their software.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. We really pride ourselves on that, and our team is awesome. So thank you for sharing that experience.
No question.
So is there? Let me ask you this: what did you find in terms of your results in terms of the year that you didn't use Deadline Funnel versus the year that you did?
Correct. Great question. So the year that we did not use Deadline Funnel, we ended up collecting 11,000 email addresses and not collecting 15,000 email addresses. And by that, I mean approximately 15,000 people got access to those interpages because they were not protected. This year, we ended up getting 27,000 people to register for our event. And to our knowledge, maybe there could have been a few hundred that got access to interpages because we didn't turn that redirect on in time. But the point is, last year we missed out on a huge opportunity. We didn't collect 15,000 email addresses. And this year, because we were on top of it and because your team members helped out, we were able to block that altogether and got more than that number. We got 27,000 brand new email addresses. Very ripe audience, very excited to learn this information. And it's truly making a difference in the number of subscribers on our email list as well as our bottom line.
That's awesome. Fantastic. Great work. Great work.
Hey, honestly, Deadline Funnel has not only proven itself through this experiment, but I'm always thinking, I'm literally dreaming up at night. I'm like, what if we put a timer on that page? What if we put a timer on that page, right? And I'll admit that I'm gone timer happy at this point, maybe a little too timer happy. But I just love the power that Deadline Funnel gives us and the ability to redirect people depending on a case-by-case basis. It's just such a powerful piece of software that I hope a lot of people watch this, and I hope people put it into their business because it is literally a game changer.
Fantastic. Well, listen, Cyrus, thank you so much for sharing this. If someone is interested in your summit, I know someone personally, a close friend of mine that I definitely want to send to your summit page. But if someone wants to either see it just for business purposes, or if they have diabetes or someone in their family has diabetes, where can they go?
Okay, so the best place to go would be masteringdiabetes.org. Okay. And then once you get to that homepage, in the nav bar, click on Summit. Or you could go to masteringdiabetes.org/summit, and then it'll take you right there.
Fantastic.
So yeah, take a look at that and see the design of things. We're turning that evergreen, and that will be a fun experience for people until the next one rolls around next year.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jack. Appreciate it.